must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
To you, and thank you so much for finding time to being with us today. This is the People's Court, and today we are looking at President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy as we keep up and find out what else the government is doing and how will this have an impact on the lasting legacy that President Uhuru Kenyatta seeks to leave after he's done with his serving his second and last term that will come to an end next year in August after the general election. So there's been a lot of politics, a lot of things are being said. Sometimes what is being done can be lost in all this noise. So, and also a couple of things that the government, promised, the Jubilee government promised when they were getting into power in the second term. And so we are here to see if at all whatever was promised is being delivered and what is being done and how far is the government in terms of its delivery on some of these promises. And a lot of them have been anchored under the Big Four agenda that the Jubilee government set out in its second term. So we'll be keeping track of all of this and, of course, other things that perhaps might not be in the Big Four agenda, but is also being done and is affecting the life of Kenyans in one way or the other. So thank you so much. And to help me out in this conversation this morning, I'm joined by Sharon Gitonga, a journalist from Nairobi, and also our in-house analyst. Sharon, good morning to you.
Thank you very much, Miriam, and a very good morning to you right at the headquarters in Nairobi, my co-panelist Samuel Tawish, and to all our viewers watching us, whether it's their morning, afternoon, or evening. It is a pleasure to be part of the People's Court conversation. Good morning.
All right, good morning to you. And we're also joined by Samuel Tawish, also a journalist from Nairobi, and our in-house analyst. Tawish, a very good morning to you.
A very good morning indeed to you, Miriam Ogutu. Good morning to colleague panelist Sharon Gitonga, our viewers in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. My greatest pleasure to join you on this program.
Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of issues, things that the government is doing this morning, and one of them are the new CBC classrooms that Nairobi County is constructing, about 270. So we are going to see how is that going on, and then we're going to look at the drought-stricken counties and what the government is doing to cushion these Kenyans who right now are in dire need and are facing starvation. And also we're going to look at the amount of money the national government is spending on new classrooms in Siaya County. I see we have it here, and the money that is required by an Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. They've said they require a certain amount of money because, funding sometimes has been one of the key challenges there in the EACC, and of course the fight against corruption. So we're going to look at that as well. And there are some farmers in Kabianga who have received a milk cooler from KCC. What will that mean to those farmers there? And also we'll bring you up to date with the latest infrastructural development, and that is we will look at Kinango Kwale Road that is set for completion in the next 36 months. So we shall look at just some of those things. They're not part of the Big Four agenda, but they are the contributors in the things that really affect the lives of Kenyans directly. But before we get into that conversation, I'm just seeing something here that perhaps we should just look at in 2 minutes, and then we move on to the topics that I've just mentioned there. And the Kenya National Qualifications Authority has partnered with other state agencies to stamp out fake academics certificates in the country. The KNQA Council Chairperson Dr. Kilemi Mwiria said the partnership with the Directorate of Criminal Investigations DCI, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Agency EACC, and the Director of Public Prosecutions DPP targets to net more than a third of Kenyans holding key positions in government and private sector without requisite qualifications. Tawish, it's about time.
Miriam, this is long overdue because by the time, there was an audit, by the time there was a survey, it to a point that they arrived. We have a 1/3 of population who are working in various sectors of our economy, Miriam, and nothing has been done to those individuals. You cannot tell me that maybe we need more audit or we need more service to really quantify this. I think it is more of a negligence, or perhaps those who are supposed to be overseers of this have basically neglected their duty, or they have permitted really to continue flourishing amongst us. So basically, I think in as much as this is a wake-up call, in as much as it's quite encouraging that perhaps these stakeholders or the relevant agencies are now working on a module on how they're going to be working together to see how they can successfully be able to undertake this exercise. It is important to understand that maybe this is something that has been with us for quite some time, and we have just been ignoring or allowing it or permitting it really to happen amidst us. But it's a good news, especially when looking onto the kind of people, looking onto the kind of leadership that we have today. Look into that case of Kapsaret Member of Parliament, Oscar Sudi. And that is just but an example. He's not the only person we are speaking about, especially amongst our politicians. You've seen more often the likes of Ali Hassan Joho from Mombasa, and so many of other politicians really being really accused of having fraudulently acquired the academic papers to get their way into the elective position. So I think it will go a long way in reading out these individuals, so that we have people of integrity, people who are qualified to be in those positions. We do not want academic dwarfs or people who have evaded their way really to get into elective or even appointive offices without necessarily going into this critical due process. Miriam, I submit.
Okay, thank you so much. And now we know the reasons why certain jobs and certain positions requires a certain level of academic qualification. So apparently there are lots of people who have faked their papers and faked their ways into very important positions, especially in government-related institutions. So now KNQA Director General Dr. Juma Mukwana said the partnership targets all government ministries, departments and agencies to ensure workers across all cadres hold the relevant qualifications. And when you look at this information and the number of people who have fake certificates and holding these positions, do you sometimes wonder maybe that could be the reasons why sometimes you experience a lot of poor service delivery when it comes to public institutions?
And thank you very much, Miriam, for that question. And indeed, this one actually speaks volume as to why we keep on complaining about, insufficient service delivery and very, poor services when it comes to the delivery of the people. And I think, I hope this is just not a rhetoric talk, but we're actually going to see, we are actually going to get into an arena of action. And how I wish we would actually have at least some of these culprits actually being brought to book and actually being charged for forgery and even for fraud, so that at least they can actually learn a lesson. Because now when you see such things happening, and I think in the morning we were actually having a conversation about the banning of schools, and something I actually said is that our children are actually a reflection of how we actually carry out ourselves. So imagine if this generation because they are watching, and you cannot actually evade social media with with the current trend, anything that is online. I mean, they are going to see all these. How much it's actually going to be of such a negative impact, especially to the children that have been we've been actually have been high on arsenary cases in schools. How are they going to take up these now? They know if they actually exempted out of school, they can actually afford certificates and actually find their way to the top positions in the government. Because if we keep on doing things the same way, we know them. We know people like the likes of Oscar Sudi who have actually been charged, and relevant education actually institutions claim that it was actually forgery, yet there's no action that is being taken upon. I mean, it's actually going to create a cycle of a very poor cycle of even the upcoming generation that we are entrusting to be our future leaders. But when they copy what is actually happening, it is very unfortunate, because they're going to be exempted out of school, and even with the certificate of good conduct, I think that Magoa was actually talking about, they will definitely forge the same and find their way towards, escalating through top positions in the government, which is quite sad. So I hope we can actually get into an arena of action. And first things first, at least let's see one or two people. We've had cases of Joho and so many people that continue to hold offices and sieve and continue to run business as usual, which is very quite unfortunate. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So now let's just get on to those topics I had mentioned to you earlier. And as we know, right now, there are sections of this country that are experiencing, droughts due to the climatic conditions. And it's that time of the year. And we've seen government has been making efforts to deliver food items to these areas. But now the government has doubled food relief supplies designated for 9 counties, currently coded red in drought surveillance. Food relief supplies for Wajir, Garissa, Isiolo, Kilifi, Kitui, Mandera, Marsabit, Samburu and Tana River have been doubled as the government distributes food rations in drought-ravaged areas across the country. The 9 counties are classified under Category 1 of counties with high risk of severe drought, hence they requiring high cost of response mechanisms. Teams of senior government officials have been traversing the country to oversee food distribution in a follow-up to President Uhuru Kenyatta'S public assurance that no Kenya will die of hunger because there is enough food to feed all affected families until next rainy season. And I think yesterday the CS for special programs, if I heard her right, she was saying the government reserves could be running out of food very soon, and perhaps they'll start giving money to these households that the government has been supporting. While we do understand when it comes to food secure Kenya, it's very important, especially to President Uhuru Kenyatta, as it forms one of his 4 paramount agendas, food security. So you can tell this is something that President Uhuru Kenyatta thought about and thought if he could solve this, then he would have gone a long way in leaving a lasting legacy. So right now the government is helping and distributing and helping the Kenyans who have been affected in this regard. But year in, year out, we do this. It's a good thing. But could we find a permanent solution? I think I've said it here so many times before. You cannot convince me that Kenya cannot feed its people. I cannot. You cannot convince me. I think we have all it takes. We have a good weather, we have good soil, at least in much part of the country. We have adequate rainfall. Sometimes it's a bit challenging, but we can use other mechanisms, to get water, because we have enough of it in this country. The food distribution and President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big 4 agenda on food security. What else can be done other than, well, helping now is good, but as a long-term measure? Samuel Tawish.
Well, Miriam, you must have noticed when you're speaking about this issue of drought and, of course, how it has been ravaging our country for so many years now. I get a little bit discouraged by government intervention. And I think it is important for us to be objective and candid on this so that government can find a reason on how they can find a long-lasting solution to this problem. Because, again, it is laughable that when people are starving, people do not have food, they do not have water, that government agencies can resort to giving them cash. I cannot understand. In fact, is it that they do not have money to buy food, or is it that food is not available at all? That is the question. And if the food is not available at all, then giving them money will not quite provide a solution. I would have supposed, because we are facing a very dire situation, a situation which needs urgent measures in terms of making sure that these people at least have water and food for now. you cannot resort to giving them cash because after all, they do not have anywhere to go and buy this food. None of them, of course, their counterparts, none of their neighbors perhaps have enough food even for their own consumption, leave alone even giving out or selling out to these, of course, drought-stricken regions. Miriam, I can quite tell you that there's a network of cartels that is using this as a conduit really to continually get money from government from time to time. How comes that government is so, it is so easy for government really to give out billions of shillings to the drought-stricken regions and individuals or these households when they cannot use even this money really to make sure that maybe we can have a sustainable irrigation system in this part of the country? If you went to northeastern Miriam today, you will confirm, Miriam, and you'll bear me witness. Even if you went to parts of Rift Valley, say Samburu, or say Isiolo, even if you went to Isiolo is of course northeastern, you went into these parts of Kajiado or even parts of Narok, you'll notice that these parts of the country have arable land. The soil is fertile. The only challenge that these people or this region is facing is lack of sufficient water really to be able to do irrigation. And if the people are not empowered enough really to do irrigation, but I do not think that they're not empowered enough, it is because getting sustainable irrigation system is quite expensive to a point that ordinary people cannot quite do this. We need government interventions. We need even non-governmental organizations and even foreign donations to come on board and help have sustainable program where we can have irrigation systems being set in these places, so that people now can end up doing irrigation and farming so that they can be able to fend for their families. But this issue of year in, year out, giving a stipend, giving 2,000 shillings per person or 3,000 per household in a month, Miriam, I do not think this is enough. And even if it was enough, where are they going to get food? And how long are we going to sustain this kind of program? How long are we going to sustain giving them this money? So I think we need to have a paradigm shift in as far as finding a long-lasting solution. For my take, Miriam, I do not think that this is the way to go, that giving money to these individuals or households is going to be a solution. The only solution will be, let us have a sustainable program where we are going to initiate irrigation programs so that the people of those regions can begin farming on their own. And even if they cannot, we can have government interventions and even governmental organizations coming on board and doing an empowerment program so that the people of this region can really be able to fend for themselves. As it is now, Miriam, it's quite discouraging that is what the government has resorted doing. How sustainable that is, it leaves a lot to be desired. I submit, Miriam.
Okay, thank you so much, Tawi. When it comes to food, I think I'm equally as sensitive as you were on this issue, because this is something that our people's lives depends on it. And President Kenyatta's heart is at the right place. He has this as part of his agenda. But I'm just wondering what has been done so far to ensure that Kenya is food secure. What are some of the measures? Like you've said, a country like Israel is a very prime good example on where we can go and
not actually dry. It is a desert. It's a desert, actually.
It is, but it's food sufficient. Is it because we don't have a will or we don't have the know-how? Of course, we could be lacking that, but we could have private, public, partnerships like you've mentioned there, so that we're able to bring in this technology and see how can we better, address this situation. So I don't know what the government is doing.
In fact, Miriam, if you looked at the place that people usually go, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, where this Dubai that everyone wants to go and really, of course, have a holiday or even a benchmark. I mean, these are places that are completely more of a desert. But these people, because of the interventions they've had, in terms of the leadership that they have had, they have been able really to turn around these regions, to turn around the economic fortunes of those places to a point that now they have become places of envy, places where we can go and benchmark, and places we can even go and really have our holidays. What is so difficult in a country like Kenya, for example, to have a proper irrigation system? Look at what is happening, for example, in Kirinyaga. Just the other time I was there, I mean, the dam that is being constructed there, once it's over, I mean, the rice farmers and even other farmers who are doing maybe subsistence or for cash crop farming, they will be able to do this because they are sure of, year-round water supply. The same thing can happen. For example, what is happening in Ukambani is it Tuake Dam, if I'm not wrong. Those are such kind of initiatives that will want really being done. The Galana Kulalu one in Northeastern, I don't know what happened with it. There was so much excitement when it was launched. Just 1 or so years it fizzled out. I cannot understand why we cannot even sustain. But Miriam, when you sit down and try to interrogate, you get to understand there are people within government agencies who do not want to see these sustainable programs really take effect. Because they don't want to
these foods,
they will not get these tenders to supply the foods or even to take the money to these individuals. You are told by the CS that they have a registry already. You cannot even authenticate. If you went there and did an investigation about the registry of people who are vulnerable, people who are supposed really to benefit out of this program, you'll be quite shocked that there are most people even who do not come from that region. So those are some of the bureaucracies that really are defeatist when it comes to finding a long-lasting solution.
Yes, and of course the government has been trying and doing just tangible things here and there with the farmers, cushioning farmers and ensuring it buys, like we saw when President Uhuru Kenyatta was leading the Mashujaa Day celebrations in Kirinyaga County. And, farmers are now, the ones who plant coffee and tea and other very important, produce. The government is doing something. The government is doing something. I just don't know if it's enough. And what else can we do to efficiently, have a food secure Kenya? Giving money is good. And cautioning these Kenyans who right now need that, I think is a good move on the government's part. But itakuwa year in, year out, this is what we are doing. What else can the government do to place Kenya in a level where we don't have to worry about millions of Kenyans dying of hunger?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Miriam, for that question. And I deeply agree with all your sentiment. And it's quite unfortunate that, the issue of food and the issue of having people dying and, being a country that actually produces more than enough. And for me, I would love to trickle this down to the counties and to the county leaders. And I think one of the greatest mistake that we actually made is having, county governors who come from that county. I wish one day we'd actually get to a place where maybe, for example, a governor in Turkana can actually vie for a place like in Laikipia, or because of such issues, you realize that the government is so keen to ensure that they actually provide food. But then you wonder what happens in the county, on the county level. I understand counties like Turkana actually receive close over actually to 120 billion every financial year. How do they account for this money? Where does this money actually go? How can you explain to me that these people in Turkana and other counties are actually eating wild fruits when we have leaders in that county? I mean, that is the biggest problem that we are having. And you realize that even giving them money is not going to be a permanent solution. There's a saying that says if you give someone a fish for a day, you're just going to feed them for that day. But if you show them how to fish, you're going to feed them, for a lifetime. And that is what we need. Can we have, irrigation projects, just like Tawish has talked about, having dams? I think in Turkana, there's actually so much potential that can be tapped from that place. And I believe not in all those counties, there's so much potential that can be tapped, and they don't have to keep on relying on donors and the government every other time. Talk about the issue of oil. Right now, we actually, we actually all eyes on energy. The energy has just risen, and to think of it that we actually have. We have oil reserves in Turkana, yet there's nothing that has actually been done. Just imagine if they actually, utilized that, how much money would have actually gone to the county. But then again, everything rises and falls under leadership. And when the leadership, is not of, does not have, I don't know if I can call it wisdom or how I can actually put it, then you expect all these kind of wrangles. And it's quite unfortunate that we are actually experiencing food starvation. And something really needs to be done. For me, it could be my recommendation about counties. Let us stop, can counties actually start, generating their own sources of income? Because we have, there are actually resources. There are actually so much that can be tapped. Thank you.
Counties do have their own taxes. They collect their taxes, and I think this is a conversation that we will have.
Taxes and recurrent expenditures. I mean, you cannot tell me you can account a whole 120 billion only goes to taxes.
I totally
let people
agree.
think out the box.
Yes,
thank you.
And I totally agree, because you brought up also the issue, Sharon, of these counties that usually go through this, to kind of all these marginalized, if you put it that way, counties in this country, and they sort of receive more money compared to other counties because of the specific challenges that they're still experiencing. So maybe we need to hold I still think the national government has a stake on it, has some portions of blame, but also the county governments. What are they doing? Because this is a problem that has been there year in, year out. What have they been doing to caution Kenyans who live in these counties? What are some of the measures they have put forth, and where would they like the national government to come in and partner and help? And we need to have this conversation on a very serious note, so that we're able to know what is it, okay? What are they doing, and what can be done? And how can the national government come in, and how can perhaps the counties get partners? And what can be done in terms of even food production in these areas? And you've spoken about the issue of food wastage. I think a couple of months ago we were having this conversation, a survey that was done, and it was found that Kenya food wastage that is being produced by our farmers across other parts of the country go to wastage, and a lot of it could feed these areas for over 1 year. So it's not because we don't have enough food, but even how we handle this food from the place where it's been planted, or at the source. And there are issues to do with transport, there are issues to do with storage, there are issues to do with the middlemen and all that has led to a lot of this food to be wasted. And also value addition could be something that could help in terms of making sure the excess that we're not able to use as per right now, we could employ technology and see how can we better add value addition to this food, so that they are preserved for a time like this when the people of Turkana and other areas need it. So I think the county governments have, especially in these areas, are letting down Kenyans in that regard, but also the national government has some stake. Now, speaking about, food wastage, there's something else that was done for the Kabianga Farmers Cooperative Society in Kericho County on the threshold of boosting their milk production, following a move by the new KCC management to provide a milk cooler to the institution. The 8 million Kenya shillings cooler has a capacity of 5,000 litres and was a donation to the cooperative group. In addition, new KCC management Nixon Sigay presented the Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society with 60 aluminium milk jerry cans, each costing 12,000 Kenya shillings and a check of 300,000 Kenya shillings. You see, these are very practical ways in which you could reduce, food wastage, and two, you're helping these farmers when you're giving them coolers. You're helping them in food, in preserving the milk until it's taken to where it should go. So these are very practical means, Tawish.
Yes, indeed. Those are what we call tangible actions or solutions to problem that people go through. Because in most cases, you'll find that the solutions are just being discussed in boardrooms. The solutions are just, or recommendations are just put down on paper, but nothing tangible is being done. You cannot quite see these people on ground. If you went out today, even if you were to do a review of government performance, various ministries and government parastatals, the kind of meetings, the kind of conferences that they have been able to hold in Nairobi and Mombasa and maybe Naivasha, for this year alone, you'll be quite surprised how good things are on paper. But when it comes to putting this into action, Miriam, it remains but just a pipe dream. I think, Miriam, just like I said before, and I still want to insist, unless it is madness, we can find a solution to the problem, to the drought menace in this country. We can find a solution to the problem of lack of food in this country, because so many people, the outside world views Africa, views Kenya as a strategic country, a country that has, I will say, adequate rainfall. It has good soils and fertile for that matter. It has enough manpower to be able to cultivate. But again, I think there's a missing link. And this missing link is that empowerment by government agencies. You talk about President Uhuru Kenyatta'S administration in this case. And I think he has done his very best. He's allocating funds to various government agencies. But the problem is the enforcers, the people who are going out to implement these projects are a big letdown to what we are going through today, Miriam. If you went through Naivasha today, along, of course, this Nairobi-Nakuru highway, Miriam, and you reach that place called, how do we call this place? Is it
Delamere.
this place? Delamere.
Yes.
See how that campaign is doing the work there, Miriam. Mm-hmm. And that is just a small company, maybe being driven by a few individuals, aliens for that matter. Why can't government be able really to tap into this expertise, to tap into this knowledge and take this to other parts of the country? Because if we went through that road today or any other time, I've always seen there's something growing, there's something being harvested year in, year out. Why can't we learn from this? When it comes to animal husbandry, you can find that they are rearing animals, they are planting crops. I mean, this is something that is possible. It's just but an example that we have enough. We have enough that we can be able to exploit if we really want to find a solution for this problem. But because we want to exploit this, especially during campaigns, look into the concept of devolution. It was to devolve funds to the local, to the ordinary monanchi, so that they're able to, through public participation, to determine the kind of priority areas that they will need governments really to address. The county governments are not doing that as much. I mean, corruption has been devolved to our counties to a point. People are now getting jobs and giving monies to their cronies, to their wives, to their children, to their relatives, and not necessarily giving services to the people who elected them into those offices. The fear is